Okay, we're back for chapter 4. Um, I know out of all 4 chapters, I've done this twice, which is recording an entire chapter without forgetting to press record. So um, before I start, I just want to say Merry Christmas to y'all. Um, I might do like 2 chapters today since we're all just kind of tired today, and I don't have really nothing going on for Christmas since I'm at home. Yippee. um, but yeah. Um, Before I do, I just want to say thank you for. I think we have 100 views on chapter 1 now, which I'm really happy about. So I guess thank you to those almost 100 people who watched the first one. If you're watching this one too, if you're not, it's fine. Anyways, let's get into it. Long intro, sorry. Mastermind Rise of Anarchy. Written by Clouds. My head in the clouds, not coming down. Read by Reen MHA. Chapter 4. Players. Summary. Let's play. Nezu had moved his knights, removing Midoriya's queen from play. Well, if I must admit, I was expecting your strategy skills to translate into chess a tiny bit better. The wonders of technology meant that the wonders of technology meant that they each had a holographic chessboard in front of them, enabling them to play without ever actually coming into contact with one another, as pre-Tara's regulations. It made the game much smoother to play than if Midoriya had to call out each of his moves for Nezu to move the pieces. Sometimes it's not about winning the game, Nezu, but the war, Midoriya responded smoothly, moving his rook forward. But maybe I'm just used to a bigger board. Ah, yes, Nezu thought for a moment before moving one of his pieces. You're quite used to having all society as your plaything, aren't you? It must be quite a shame being confined to such a small space with such limited contact of the outside world. Maybe that's the difference between us, Midoriya smiled. You're so limited. You seem to think that this room is my whole game board, since it is where I am right now. But you're forgetting that in chess, the king only ever inhabits one space. Nezu only saw the trap for a split second before Midoriya used one of his pawns to take out his king. He stared at the finished game passively, careful not to let any of his shocked expression show on his face at the realize that Midoriya must have thrown past the past few matches, with just how confident he had been acting since his arrest. Nezu had forgotten all about Nezu had forgotten that Midoriya, above all else, was the master of being underestimated. It was just one of the parts why it had taken them so long to catch him after all. The game hasn't changed. The board hasn't changed, Nezu, and neither have the players. Midoriya stood up from his chair at the window and went back to his bed. Better luck next time. Are you sure the police don't know about Izuku's base? Shoto asked again. Positive, young chump. Gentle criminals laughed echoed through the receiver. If they knew of it, they would have already descended upon it like flies. Mastermind was careful not to have all of his resources connected, Lavra added. As soon as I got the news that he'd been arrested, I left some breadcrumbs for the authorities, just enough that they wouldn't just enough so that they could reasonably believe that they had found everything. But his main base was connected to another account. The heroes shouldn't even be looking for it. Shoto nodded. Shoto nodded. Not that they could see him over the phone. Thank you. I, uh, I'll talk to you later if I find anything. Shoto? Lavra sounded hesitant. I'm sorry. I should have. The hostage program was one of my best works, but once they were in the mainframe. Shoto was silent for a long moment before he responded. Like I said, I'll talk to you later. He hung up the phone and tossed it aside beside him on the bed. He groaned and put his hands in his head. Put his head in his hands. He knew Labra had done her best work on that program. He knew it, and it had worked. The hostage situation had kept Izuku from getting arrested for almost a year. But but at the end of the day it had failed. Izuku had trusted the bra, but she failed. While Shoto would still work with her, he wasn't willing to forgive her yet. Maybe, depending upon how things worked these next few months, he would. But he wasn't holding his breath. Finally, after a long moment, he grabbed his phone again. Shoving it in his pocket along with his keys, he shoved a beanie on his head and went to cover his hair. Dalby and Shigaraki were sitting on the couch playing video games when he passed through the living room on his way out the door. Dalby put his controller down and gave him a long look. You going to his base? Shoto shrugged, and Dalby looked torn. Sure, just be careful. It's only been a few weeks, so we really should be lying low right now. I have been lying low, Shoto growled, but if Izuku left me something, I have to know. lay off the kid, Dalby. No time for your stupid sibling rivalry. Shigaraki took his hand off the controller and started scratching at his neck. No one's arguing that you shouldn't go. We're all dying of curiosity, too. Or did you forget that we're Mastermind's friends, too? Are you sure you're going alone? Dalby asked. Might be better to have backup. Two people is more conspicuous than one. Shota argued. I know you're worried about me, but with the, I know you're worried about me, but with the way all of our faces are on the news right now, it's only safe if one of us goes. And Izuku said Izuku said I would be the only one to be able to open the box. I have my phone. I'll call if I get in any trouble. Dalby looked hesitant, but nodded, picking his controller up again. Don't die. Shoto scoffed. No promises. Just get out there before I kill you myself, Shigaraki griped. Shoto smiled despite everything and made his way out the League's hideout onto the streets. He made sure to match the body language of the other people on the street as he hurried to his destination, head down, trying not to call too much attention to himself. The mood on the street had shifted significantly from what it had been during the Ages of Heroes, but it had taken a significant hit since the Hero Commission had fallen. It had a lot to do with the increase in villainy, but people just didn't walk around without fear anymore, expecting a hero to save them from anything that could possibly go wrong. It would have been almost sad if their previous confidence hadn't been built off of lies and propaganda. Thankfully, no one gave Shoto a second glance as he hurried to Izuku's base. He glanced around briefly to make sure that there weren't any heroes around before he used his key to let himself in. He had taken a deep breath to stop himself from crying as he crossed the threshold. It was like walking back in time. Even though everything had changed on the outside world, apparently nobody had the chance to tell that to the apartment. Nothing had moved an inch since the last time he had been there. There were still papers on the coffee table from Izuku taking notes while watching the news. There were still dishes on the rack that had been left out to dry. There was even a half-full can of soda on the counter. It was Jagger. Shoto took another deep breath and crouched to look underneath the couch. The box was wedged all the way against the back wall, and Shoto knew he probably looked extremely undignified as he stretched out to reach and slide it out. There was a rasping sound as it slid across the floor. It was heavier than Shoto had expected when he picked it up and set it down on the couch. It looked surprisingly normal, just a standard tackle box, if you didn't pay attention to the fact that it was made out of thick metal and had a high-tech lock where the latch should be. He blew away the thin layer of dust and entered the passcode that Izuku had texted him. The box beeped, and a small screen that Shoto hadn't even seen lit up. A small light was blinking orange, and Shoto leaned closer to read the prompt that had appeared. Fingerprint required. There wasn't a fingerprint scanner that he could see, so Shoto settled for pressing his thumb against the screen before holding his breath and hoping that it would actually work. The machine seemed to think for a moment, for a half second, before there was another loud beep, and the light turned green. Ally identified. Shoto. There's a click as the box unlocked, and Shoto almost ripped open the box as soon as he heard it. Inside, there were a few notebooks and flash drives, but what caught Shoto's attention was an envelope with his name on it in Izuku's handwriting. His hands trembled as he carefully tore it open and took out the letter and said, Dear Shoto, if you're reading this letter, I'm sorry. I've probably been arrested, haven't I? It's gonna happen eventually, I know, but you can't become as big of a villain as I am without making a few enemies in law enforcement. I'm sorry for leaving you behind, especially if you weren't giving any warning. I hope that I at least got a chance to say goodbye. Shoto rubbed his eyes and took a shaky breath. He didn't think about the handcuff or the frantic texts as a goodbye. So what happens now? I'm just a quirkless kid, so there's a chance that the heroes won't even be able to see past their own bias and send me to a normal prison, which in that case, the yellow notebook should be your best bet. If they sent me to Tartarus, well, it'll be a little more difficult and definitely a lot more risky, but doable. Wherever I am, they're probably limiting my contact with the outside world, so unfortunately, most of the work is going to be left to you, the League, and whoever else wants to get on my good side. The Black Notebook should have enough dirt on the local villains that you can blackmail into getting them to help you, if you needed to. But I don't think you'll need to use too much of that, unless, of course, they sent me to Taurus. The secret about Taurus is that they see people on the inside as the biggest threat, which normally would be true. The people locked inside are amongst the dangerous on Earth, but heroes have lived long enough to the age of the symbol of peace. They're used to villains being too afraid and band together, and that is their weaknesses. Tell Shigaraki I'm sorry, he never asked about Tell Shigaraki I'm sorry. He never asked about getting into Tartarus, and I was certain that Sensei had his own plans that I didn't want to interfere with, especially with how difficult and dangerous this will be. No one has ever escaped Tartarus before, but then again, there's never been a quick list #1 villain before either. Be sure to read the notebooks carefully. I've included several backup plans in case things goes wrong, but I have faith in you, Shoto. I know you can save me. See you soon. Izuku Midoriya, Mastermind. And that, my friends, was chapter 4. If you heard yelling in the middle, that was my brother. If you didn't, ignore me. I know I don't know what the mic on this is and how good it is. And like I record everything in one go, or I try to. Because just editing, especially since I used to use WeVideo and that wouldn't let me put together videos longer than 5 minutes, which was a real pain, so I'm just recording it all in one go, putting a cover on it, and posting it. I know it's probably not the best way to go about it, but I'm trying to like record fast, you know. It is Christmas, I do want to spend a little bit of family time, but then again, I did see that some people, or somebody was asking for chapter 4, so if you read this, listen to this right away, sorry I was like 3 hours late, but yeah. Merry Christmas if it is Christmas for you. If not, Merry Day. I hope you all have a wonderful day and night. And yeah, I'll see you guys in chapter 5.